What up, Jippers? LPlay's back, and today we're going to be answering the question, what the heck is Waking Titan? Now, you may have noticed there's a lot of hype going on at the moment around No Man's Sky, and that's mostly due to the announcement of the No Man's Sky Next update. And for those of you that have been sleeping, that of course is coming on July 24th, and also brings No Man's Sky to the Xbox for the first ever time. So this is a pretty big deal, and it's got a lot of people dropping into No Man's Sky for the first time, or for the first time in a long time. And a lot of them are probably very confused about what is going on with Waking Titan. It's something you're going to see a lot if you're searching for No Man's Sky at the minute, and it's not going to make any sense. So the whole point of this video is to break Waking Titan down, explain it in a very simple, clear, and easy to understand way. What is it? What does it do? How does it link to No Man's Sky? And how do you get involved? Okay, let's do this. So Waking Titan, also known as Project WT, is an ARG or an alternate reality game. So an ARG or alternate reality game is basically a set of interactive stories and narrative that takes place in the real world and uses a whole different range of platforms in real life to tell story. It's basically a way of telling an interactive story that can get a community involved, often via solving puzzles or finding clues or piecing various different sources of information, videos, live streams, secret codes, actual real life packages being sent out, radio stations, websites, all of that kind of stuff, and bringing that all together to tell a story to the community and with community input. Now, one of the really cool things about a typical ARG is that players or community members that get involved with the ARG tend to drive the story at least to an extent. So the things that people do when they get involved with the ARG, or the choices that the community makes, or the way they go about solving things or not solving things or failing things or succeeding in certain things, will actually shape and alter the outcome of the story. So that's where it gets the interactive element. It needs the players, it needs the community to jump in and do things and interact with it for it to work, but also the choices and the way that they interact will then have an effect on how that overall story is pieced together and told, and often what the outcome will be influenced by the choices that the community members taking part actually make. So that's what generally an ARG is. Now, Waking Titan itself is specifically an ARG that links to the game No Man's Sky, so that's why you'll often see No Man's Sky / Waking Titan videos, or No Man's Sky content or creators or news talking about stuff that's going on in Waking Titan, because the two are very closely linked. And of course, one of the first questions a lot of people have is, how are they linked? What's the relationship? And why is Waking Titan important for anyone who's getting involved with No Man's Sky, or even just coming back out of curiosity to have a look at No Man's Sky at the minute? They're kind of wondering, what is this Waking Titan stuff? How does it impact the game? What does it have to do with anything? And why should I care? So the purpose of the Waking Titan ARG is essentially twofold. So I'm going to cover that. It's pretty simple to understand. The first part of that, so the first main reason for Waking Titan, is the story, is the lore, is this narrative that Waking Titan tells us. And that links back to the origin story of the game No Man's Sky. So for those of you that don't know, for those of you that haven't played through any of the story in No Man's Sky, No Man's Sky the game is actually set inside a simulation. So a lot of what's going on in this separate Waking Titan ARG is actually telling some of the backstory, some of the origin story of how that simulation came to be and how it was created. Essentially, before No Man's Sky simulated world, how did people arrive at the point where they were in that simulation, and how was that created? So that's the kind of general gist and purpose of the story side of things. But there's also another purpose, one that a lot of people probably care about a little bit more, especially if you're just trying to jump in at this point. Although I would say the lore and story stuff is really interesting. So if you do have time and you are interested, definitely try and read back through some of this stuff. Definitely try and catch up on some of it, because there's a lot of really cool and fun stuff in there. But now for the second purpose, the one that's really important for anyone who's mostly just interested in No Man's Sky the game, and that is the other thing that Waking Titan delivers to us is content teases, feature teases, images, screenshots, clues about what is actually going to be coming to the game itself in the next update. So not just the next update that's taking place now, but this also happened for the last update. So 1.3 of No Man's Sky, the Atlas Rises update, which was freaking massive. A lot of the content and features and stuff that were coming in there were actually teased in the first instance to players who were taking part in Waking Titan. So if you do stay up to date on this stuff, if you are following it, if you do pay attention, you can often get information and details about the upcoming updates before the actual trailers go up, before the patch notes come up, sometimes quite a long way in advance. And the best example I'll give for anyone new at the moment coming to this is the player models and multiplayer stuff that we've got for No Man's Sky Next. There was obviously the Inside Xbox interview that talked about that, and since then we've actually been given an animated holographic model of what the player avatar characters in game are going to look like when the update drops, and we got those through solving clues in Waking Titan. So anyone doing that and receiving those messages were the first people to know about these player models. That's where it was leaked, that's where we saw it, that's where it was presented to us for the first ever time, before anybody else in the world who just plays the game or just follows the game had any idea what was going on. So yeah, they're the two main purposes: supplementary story and lore for the game, and also teasers and content about the upcoming updates before anywhere else. Now, another popular question, another complaint even, that a lot of people have about Waking Titan without knowing too much about it is, oh my god, why are Hello Games wasting time doing all of this complicated stuff, creating all of these puzzles, running this big complicated massive ARG with loads of real life events and puzzles and websites and all of that time and effort? Why are they doing that instead of just hurrying up to give us the goddamn updates? That's a genuine complaint that I see all the time, and there's a really easy answer to that that should make you relax a little bit, and that is simply that they've outsourced this. So there's a company that does this for a profession. The entire point of their business, the entire thing that they do, is to run these ARGs, is to make them fun, is to make them interesting, and to tell these interactive narratives to community members, to players. And that company is called Allison Smith. They're based in Canada, and they've done this for many, many games. No Man's Sky is not the only game. This is not a new thing. These ARGs are quite popular, quite common, and if you're into them, you can find a whole load of them that are going on now, that have taken place in the past, with all kinds of cool stuff related to all different things. So Hello Games are not wasting all of their time doing this. I'm sure they feed into it. I'm sure there's input from Hello Games, but that's going to be minimal. They're not spending every day doing all of this stuff. They're not the ones creating the websites and all of the content. That's all handled separately by Allison Smith, and it allows us to have something fun and interesting to do, to engage in, to have fun with in between the big updates for the game. And if you're not interested in any of this stuff at all, that's fine. It doesn't affect the game, it doesn't impact your in-game experience. You won't miss out on anything to do with No Man's Sky. You don't have to have done this, you don't have to be a part of the ARG. You can just be one of those people that loves the game, plays the game, and doesn't really care about the other stuff. And if you are that kind of person, it's quite easy to find out about the clues and feature teasers that we do get through the ARG anyway, because they're often covered here on my channel, other channels, or in the just general gaming news. You'll see when we get big bits of information, like the player models, like multiplayer, like new ships or screenshots that get teased, anything like that you will see pretty quickly if you're following a couple of content creators, or if you're on the No Man's Sky Reddit and that sort of thing. So it's not like you have to be fully into this. And likewise, you don't have to be able to solve all of the puzzles and do all the detective type work, because there is a really great community of people that do all of that. So if you just want to kind of recap and catch up, there are lots of ways that you can do that, and I'm going to add a whole load of links to this video of really good resources that you should absolutely check out if you do want to get caught up, or if you do just want to know when the next big thing happens, or if you just want to see future summaries and easy to understand highlight reel type stuff. So hopefully after that little bit there, you should now have a pretty good idea of what an ARG is, what Waking Titan is, and how it actually links back to No Man's Sky. Now I just want to go into a very light bit of detail about some of the stuff that's happened before, with some good examples of things that we've got, things that we've done as a community, and the general sort of gist of how the Waking Titan ARG is generally run, just so you have a bit of a feel for it, some of the key themes, some of the sort of common types of puzzles that we have to solve, and that way you will know if it is something you want to get involved with a little bit more. And if you do want to do that and you've got questions, please drop them in the comments. There are a whole load of people that will help you out with answers and point you in the right direction to stuff, and I'll of course be jumping in there as well. So all of this actually kicked off on the 27th of May back in 2017. So as you can imagine, a lot of stuff has happened here, a lot of story has been told, and there is an awful lot to catch up on. But if you are going to try and catch up, the best way I would suggest personally that you do that is go to the Game Detective's website, and I'll put a link to that in the description. But essentially what that would do is give you a complete summary of every single thing that's happened, every phase of Waking Titan, every bit of information we've got from it, all of the screenshots, all of the teaser information, and all of the official memos, even things like direct messages from Hello Games themselves that have come out of the ARG itself. So the outputs, events, how things were solved, how things were run, and what kind of events were done will all be highlighted there for you in chronological order, and you can kind of go through to get a rough idea of what's been going on and understand things at your own pace without having to try and stop a video, rewind a video, and keep up and catch up and all of that kind of thing. And I will just talk very briefly about the beginning of all of this, because it was quite funny, because back on the 27th of May when all of this happened, what originally kicked things off was a tweet. A link that was tweeted by a Twitter user that goes by @ARGN. So that's basically like the ARG news or network type page, and they tweet stuff to do with all kinds of ARGs, and essentially them tweeting it kind of gives people that are into the ARG side of things, not necessarily No Man's Sky, just people that like solving all of these puzzles and taking part in these interactive stories. It gives them the heads up that, hey guys, here's another ARG that's taking place, you should start digging into this, you should start checking it out, and try and figure out what it's linked to, what it's all about, because it's now about to kick off. And back when this happened, nobody in the No Man's Sky community really had any idea that it was linked to the game. A lot of No Man's Sky people weren't following it very early on. That came a little bit later, and we'll touch on that in a second. But essentially early on, that link led people to a website that had a radio station on it, and from there another 16 radio stations were found, and 16 is quite a common number, quite a common theme that's used throughout the Waking Titan ARG. It plays into the lore of No Man's Sky and the origin story. So that's kind of why there were 16 of them. But these 16 radio stations all led to clues, all led to bits of information that then later led to further clues, further websites, further stations, and further events that the community had to take part in to get this to progress. So that's kind of how it actually really kicked off way back in the day. And quite soon after that initial launch, a website was discovered called wakingtitan.com. Now for anyone that doesn't know, wakingtitan.com, that's still available. That kind of acts as the central hub, the central website that most of the stuff we solve leads back to. So there are loads of other websites involved, loads of different places and clues and events that I've talked about that we've had to solve and take part in, but ultimately most of them give us clues to unlock things that are called glyphs on wakingtitan.com. So you'll hear talk about glyphs quite a lot whenever you're researching Waking Titan, and essentially all this was, they were little symbols on a website. When you click on those symbols, they come up with a little login screen. You have to put in a password, a code to open it and unlock something, and those are the codes all of this puzzle stuff sort of leads back to. So we do a load of puzzles, we go to a load of websites, we go to actual real life events or live drops where we'll meet someone and they give us a box and we have to crack into it to get a clue, that kind of thing. But ultimately all of that, once it's solved, then gives us an answer or a code to unlock one of these glyphs. And there were 16 of these in total. The first one was actually like the backdrop to the wakingtitan.com originally. That has changed now, so if you go there today, you'll just see the status command, and at the bottom you'll see a reel of glyphs, and there's only 15 of them there, but there was originally an extra one which was kind of the first ever one that was solved. Now all of these glyphs have now been solved, so if you want to find the answers to all of these, you can go to the Game Detective site, and the code to put in to unlock them yourself is all there. And that, of course, has taken us right from back in May 2017 up to just recently to solve. We've only just cracked the last couple of them, so now all of those have been solved, but there is still more stuff going on. So yeah, that's kind of like the general way this works. There are all kinds of clues, websites, emails that go out, actual phone calls for some people that submitted their phone numbers, cipher puzzles to solve, codes to crack, live events to go to, interactive challenges and puzzles. All of this kind of stuff is quite typical of ARGs, and all of that was used in Waking Titan. And one of the key methods of the ARG delivering us with actual information or teasers or features or announcements is through secret memos. So these are just PDF documents. We get them by unlocking stuff, by unlocking these glyphs, by solving puzzles, and once we've done that, we'll kind of get a link to a PDF document, and that will have an announcement on. And sometimes these are even directly from Hello Games themselves. So before Atlas Rises, there was a top secret memo from Sean Murray, and that gave us a little thank you message and an announcement that the next update was coming. But while a lot of this stuff was going on really early on and people were solving this stuff, looking into Waking Titan, like I say, the link to No Man's Sky hadn't really been picked up on. And it wasn't until a load of cassette tapes, so your old school cassette tapes, double-sided little tapes, started being sent out to key people in the No Man's Sky community. So these were popular YouTubers like Cobra TV or Reddit moderators, for example. People that were very active within the community of No Man's Sky online started receiving these packages that had cassette tapes in, and those cassette tapes had basically like white noise type sound, horrible audio that when run through a spectrogram gave us the word portals, and of course portals later turned out to be one of the major features that was implemented in the No Man's Sky update. But that actually at the time wasn't the thing that really linked this to No Man's Sky, because we didn't really know that was coming. The thing that linked it to No Man's Sky is that those packages were sent from Hello Games. And Cobra TV did a video actually showing this. He showed the box, he showed that it was sent from Hello Games themselves. He opened it up, he got the tape, and it was obviously linked to Waking Titan. And that was kind of the turning point for a lot of people that hadn't been following it early on, a lot of people within the No Man's Sky community that really started to join the two of those things up. And that was for me personally the point where I was like, oh, I've heard about this Waking Titan stuff, I don't really see how it links to No Man's Sky, but actually now that Hello Games have sent something out as part of the ARG, it's quite obvious that yes, this is linked to No Man's Sky. So that's where a lot of people drew that link initially, and that's what kind of led to the wider community getting involved from a No Man's Sky perspective to start solving all of the puzzles and stuff as it went on. So that's some of the background for you. I've touched on a lot of the kind of puzzles and clues and things that we get, but as well as that, there's also some other stuff. So we often get actual video communications by NPCs, in-lore characters, which are basically Alice and Smith hiring professional actors to carry out a role to play a person in the story of this Waking Titan stuff. And there are also like fake companies that are all involved in this. So the Atlas Foundation is one of the main ones. They're kind of the good guys that we're all trying to help and assist throughout the ARG. There's a more recent one which appears to have ended up being the main bad guy, the main antagonist, and that wasn't found until recently, and that's a company called Ware, and that's kind of spelt weird. I'll show the logo there, but it's a W/ARE. They're essentially at this point believed to be the main villains. That was a theory that I came out with on a video a while back, and it certainly seems that way since, because some of the stuff that's happened in the story has essentially had them doing bad things like kidnapping people that were trying to help the Atlas Foundation, trying to cover up information and send out these fictional headset sci-fi devices that trap people in them and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff happening here, a lot of interesting stuff, but we get the videos, we get the story, we've got these fake companies and websites, and we also have some really weird things sometimes. And a really good example of that is a live stream that was done on Twitch as part of the ARG, which actually had all of the people involved, all of the community members, trying to direct a hamster through a maze to solve a puzzle and get a clue. That's right, there was a very lengthy live stream with an actual hamster being directed by people to get through a maze to give us clues to unlock the next bit of story for the ARG at one point. So a lot of this stuff is really cool and interesting. Some of it is just completely balmy, but it's almost always fun and interesting to take part in. And of course, even if you don't really enjoy doing that kind of thing, you do get the teasers and the features and the official memos and communications coming out of it, which a lot of players get really excited about, of course, because they do tell us things about the game and they do link back to No Man's Sky, and that's where most of the fan base of this ARG is from. So on the subject of characters and story and companies, I'm just going to give you a very quick rundown of some of the main characters in the ARG. I'm not going to come close to touching on all of this or developing it or fleshing it out fully. Like I say, this has been going on for a very long time now. There's a lot that's happened, but just to kind of get you up to speed with some of the names and some of the people that you might be seeing in these communications and videos at the moment, just so you've got a bit of an understanding of like roughly where that fits in terms of story. So there's the Atlas Foundation. That's kind of the main good guy that I mentioned. They're a company that's developing this artificial intelligence to create this perfect simulated world, and there are two main characters from that company. One of them is the CEO, and her name is Elizabeth Layton. She's kind of the figurehead for the Atlas Foundation, and she will often give us video communications with calls to action. So she'll drop a video and it will be addressed to all CSD members, and CSD is the Citizen Science Division. That's essentially what this fan base, this community have become known as. That's our role in this. We're playing citizen scientists, helping the Atlas Foundation to overcome all of these problems and solve all of this stuff. And there is an official forum for the Atlas CSD members, so I'll link that down below. It used to be called eTark, it's now called Atlas CSD. Website's there, that's just real people like me and you watching this video. All of us in there in one place talking about all of this stuff, discussing it, and also just sharing No Man's Sky stuff as well. So if you do want to get involved in this at all, definitely go and sign up there, make an account and just start talking to people. Very nice community. You will have people that are willing to help you out and point you to information, so definitely suggest going to do that right away after this video. Now another character from the Atlas Foundation is Emily, or Loop 16. So she is actually an artificial intelligence. We saw her in some vlog videos, and we're now seeing more videos and communication coming from her right now in the ARG, but essentially she is the AI. She is an artificially intelligent being that can predict the future, and she is currently believed to be trapped inside the simulation that will become No Man's Sky. Now, as well as those, the other main one that you really want to know about right now is where, or we are, that I mentioned, the bad guys. And essentially they're a science fiction technology company. They're making this headset, this technology that people can put on their heads and then dive into a simulated world. Now that sounds really cool and fun, but the main theory at the moment is that actually they're quite nefarious, they're bad guys, and they want to trap people in those headsets for some reason. They want people to be stuck in the simulation, which is likely going to be the game of No Man's Sky, with no way to get out. And it's not really clear what their actual motivation is, whether it's a case of them trying to harvest the processing power of the human brain or enslave humanity. That's kind of still being figured out, but the general consensus is they're the baddies, Atlas Foundation and us are the goodies, and we're trying to stop them. And there are also a load of other companies that are fictional and linked to this ARG, partners of the Atlas Foundation, things like Myriad, Superlumina. So if you're seeing those words, generally they're just other companies that are helping the Atlas Foundation to develop this technology that's needed to create that perfect simulated world. Where themselves, in fact, were meant to be one of those partners, but it looks like at the moment they're not quite as good and helpful as we thought they were. And that's kind of where we're at today. Where bad guys, we're still trying to understand what their motivation is. We're getting emails at the moment, we're getting information at the moment. We had the player model recently, we had a screenshot that actually appears to show some new ship classes that we think are going to be included in the next update, which is like pretty big news. You know, we're seeing content that nobody else knows about through this ARG, and we're expecting a lot more of that as we lead up to that July 24th release date. And hopefully soon we'll get a trailer or an announcement about the next update, and that will probably come first through the ARG before anywhere else. So it really is something that's worthwhile following, and from my perspective personally, it's been a heck of a lot of fun doing all of this stuff. I've had a blast with some of this. I actually went to one of the live drop events, and that involved me going to London, live streaming the whole thing on YouTube, meeting one of these Ware developer agents or sleeper agents, and getting a lockbox off them, and then the community helping and watching me to unlock that box by giving me the codes based on clues that we'd been receiving. So there's all kinds of fun stuff like that happens, and I'm personally finding the whole Ware being the bad guy and the villain quite a really fun story. And you'll probably notice in any of my other Waking Titan videos at the moment that I'm having quite a lot of fun as a sort of prophet, prophesizing the end of the world and the evilness of Ware and trying to warn people about that. So yeah, I'm having a blast with it. I do think it's worth getting into. If you do find this even slightly interesting based on what I'm saying, then definitely go and do that. So I think that probably covers the main information that you need at a very, very high level, just to kind of give you an intro, Waking Titan 101, and kind of whet your appetite for what's going on. But if you do want to find out more, like I say, there are loads of good resources. Links will be in the descriptions below. I've got a Waking Titan playlist that's got loads of videos about every little thing that's happened, going all the way back to the beginning. There's also the Game Detective's website, probably #1 resource. If you're more active on Twitter, there's a Twitter user called Peaceful Gamer. He is on top of everything that happens, so he's posting out daily whenever something's found, whenever we get a new clue, a new picture, a new sound clip, anything like that, you'll see that posted by Peaceful Gamer. So definitely follow him on Twitter and give him props for the hard work that he does. There's the official No Man's Sky Discord, so that's another really good resource. Lots of solving goes on in there. Some of the Game Detective guys are in there as well. Some of the community members just helping to solve stuff as it actually happens. So if you do want to get involved right in the thick of it, right in the heat of the moment, that's definitely a very good place to go to. Like I mentioned, there's also the Atlas CSD forum. That's our official forum for the ARG, so definitely go to that. And if you do all of those things and you're watching YouTube, you're looking out for Waking Titan videos, I'll be doing them, of course. And there are a couple of other good ones like Cobra TV, Kyle Culver, Just Jared, loads of them, too many to name. I'll put some more links down below. But yeah, that should give you everything you need to get into it and to stay up to date. So I really hope you found this video useful. If you did find it useful, or if you just enjoyed it, I would really appreciate it if you drop a like and a comment. Of course, that stuff helps like crazy for us smaller channels, and I appreciate that no end. And if you do want to support me that little bit extra, I've got a Patreon. I'm hoping one day that I can do this for a living. So that's kind of what the Patreon is for, you know, is to realise the dream. Maybe one day we'll hit there with a bit of support from you guys. Thank you so much if you do support me there. And I have also got some cool nifty little Jipper merch. So if you want to grab yourself some gear with my logo and branding on, then you can go ahead and do that. And make sure you tweet me your pictures if you do, because I would be made up to see that kind of thing. But yeah, that's it from me, guys. Stay tuned here. There will be loads of news about No Man's Sky and Waking Titan as everything happens. And I'll catch you in another episode very soon. Take care, guys, and peace. I just want to give a huge thank you and shout out to my current Patreon supporters: Shiraka Majeli, YO, Madeline J, UK Gamer 84, Todd Cook, Neil B, Anarchy, Vanilla, Rasmus K, Mingrui, Dale from the Atlas Hub, Joanne Anderson, Heath, and the Portrait Dude. You guys are the best.